During the French and Indian War, England and France fought for control of North America. Much of the fighting centered on the Lake Champlain-Lake George corridor. These two lakes, combined with the Hudson River to the south and the St. Lawrence River to the north, provided a crucial transport route between the British colonies and New France. An army controlling these waterways could travel freely from New York City to Montreal. From the start of the war in 1754, the forces of New France won a string of victories, putting the British colonies firmly on the defensive. 1756 saw the arrival of a new French commander and even more losses for the British, notably the defeats at Fort Bull and Fort Oswego.
The various events of the 1756 campaign in North America will make it the brightest campaign there has ever been on this continent.
The following year, the attention of New France would return to the Lake Champlain-Lake George region.
After having taken Oswego, the French governor wanted to remove the English influence on Lake George at Fort William Henry. And it was thought a winter attack against Fort William Henry might have been very successful. The garrison would have been reduced in size. The level of supplies might have been low enough that a well-run siege, if you will, would have an effect in enforcing a surrender.
In the late winter, the governor of Canada, the Marquis de Vaudreuil, planned an attack against Fort William Henry. His brother, François Pierre de Rigaud, led almost 1,600 French regulars, Canadians, and Native Americans down the frozen Lake Champlain.
Interestingly enough, they had quite a wide variety of weather to experience before they even got to Ticonderoga. Ice on Lake Champlain softened from warm weather. It rained, it snowed. There were some days where there was 5 to 6 inches of water on the ice that was soaking their supplies that they were pulling behind themselves in sleds.
The French forces arrived at the south end of Lake Champlain on March 5th, 1757. On the 15th, they left Carillon and began marching up the frozen Lake George.
They were making their attack during the time of the new moon, which means that there was actually no ambient light other than starlight, making it very, very dark, which would have been to their advantage. But ironically, they were so insecure on the condition of the ice of Lake George, probably based upon their experience of coming up Lake Champlain from Montreal, that each of the 3 columns of the French attacking force had men out in front with lanterns and hatchets testing the thickness of the ice.
In the early morning hours of March 19th, the sentries of the fort were alerted to the activity on the ice.
About 1 o'clock in the morning, a noise of axes was heard that seemed to be about 3 miles from the fort. This gave the alarm.
The French forces moved to attack, but were held off by the English. At daybreak, the French withdrew, waiting until nightfall to resume their attack. Under the cover of darkness, they began to set fire to the ships, bateaux, and buildings surrounding the fort.
These different fires burnt with such violence as to make one apprehend at one side of the fort that the other or opposite quarters were in flames. Yet, happily, by proper care and vigilance, no damage was done.
The battle continued in this manner for several days, coming to an end the night of March 22nd.
Such was the end of this expedition. They burned the enemy's 300 bateaux, 4 vessels, 2 houses, and left one other which they believed too exposed to burn.
The 44th Regiment had fought gallantly and to great effect. Major William Eyre reported only 7 wounded and no men killed, but they had lost almost all of their boats and stores. The winter garrison of Fort William Henry eagerly awaited relief.
What the French were able to do was they destroyed almost all of the bateaux, and they destroyed all of the sloops. They also were able to burn an awful lot of the stockpiles of firewood, as well as a couple of the storehouses that were built outside the walls of the fort. So this attack, while it didn't result in the destruction of Fort William Henry for the English, What it did do is it destroyed a lot of their materiel that they were going to need to use for their campaign of 1757.
If you want to see more videos like this in the future, hit the subscribe button. If you're interested in purchasing the full-length documentary that this clip is from, head over to my website, eks.tv.